We are at a closed, decommissioned field camp prison in North Carolina. And what that means is that these are small prisons. Originally, there were about 100 of them scattered throughout North Carolina, used to build our road systems. North Carolina used more forced prison labor than any other state in the nation to build its road system. In 2012, I began this program, Grow and Change, working with a group of young people from this region to reclaim or transform this closed prison into a sustainable farm and resource center to answer the new question of what to do with old prisons. These young people who grew up being kicked out of home, kicked out of school, and put on probation at 14 or below were selected to be the youth leaders. In my line of work, we call that the unholy trinity of risk factors. You have the young people that will run the highest risk of nearly every grim outcome you can think of, especially terminal incarceration or death by homicide. After our 5-year clinical pilot programs, we were 92% effective in preventing entry into the adult correctional system. To understand Grow and Change, you have to start with our mission statement: to reclaim, attain, and sustain. Reclaim opportunities for forgotten people and places, attain education for our community, and sustain personal and environmental wellness for the surrounding communities who house these closed prisons. And what that looks like is both short-term practical ways that we're currently using the site, as you hear in the background. Our eggs, chickens raised for harvest, our cattle, our sheep, both for harvest as well as for wool, as well as a guardian donkey, not to be harvested, but as protection. Just this morning, walking through with allies from our local community, how are we going to reclaim the old warden house here and the old staff barracks?
What we hope to do is to be able to turn some of these structures into being able to support the returning citizens as they get out of lockup.
So when we say practically reclaiming now, we're talking about the collards that we're planting.
So how long has the Morris family been out here farming collards?
Great-grandfather and my grandfather crossed a cabbage with a collard. We've been harvesting the same seeds since the 1930s. So we'll give you a 8 to 10 inch collard plant. 60 to 70 days, you should have a collard that's good size to eat.
So right now, I'm at the rightmost guard tower. We're going to be turning it into a adventure tower, one with a rock climbing wall, a rappelling station. So it's going to be pretty cool.
What people don't realize is that the leading source of waste going into U.S. landfills is actually food waste. And when that gets into landfills, it produces a whole lot of greenhouse gases. So this is a cycle that we're trying to help break.
We just really want your trash. We want the tea bags, the coffee grounds, stuff like that, so that we can feed it to our animals and the soldier flies, and the ground worms too, so that we can get a good compost at the farm.
Well, you definitely have main table support on anything you need.
All right, now I'm mixing up this leaves with chicken litter and pine bark for our compost. This is a prison cell that we converted into a compost bin.
1, 2, 3. Now, since the clinical pilot program, youth don't have to fit all 3 criteria. They just have to come from one area of struggle.
My name is Jaden. I first started, I worked out here in 2019, and then I took a break for a while. During that break, I was struggling pretty hard with substance abuse. It got really rough. I've had multiple overdoses. It kind of all started back when I was 15. I had like a really bad spell going on my jaw where it pops out of place. And my dentist gave me prescription pain pills, and that was kind of it. That pretty much consumed me from the age of 15 to right now, 19. And this is the first time I've been sober in a long time. I've always been kind of passionate about the planet. It kind of helps me out, like money-wise too, trying to get back to how everything was, be me again,
Being in a rural area that's not connected to a growing urban area, we are the traditional representation of low-wealth, rural America. We're also one of the hardest hit regions of North Carolina, having some of the highest unemployment, the highest food insecurity, some of the worst crime rates, highest poverty depending on the measurement, and some of the worst health outcomes in the nation. Through our strong partnership with Cooperative Extension, we're creating a free online module-based program that helps unpack resources and opportunities for other groups to reclaim closed prisons.
We're making the argument that can't we create an open source like public practice tool? And that's what the toolkit kind of would end up being. Robin, could you pull together an informal beta group with your fellow students at State?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have them read this.
I knew nothing whatsoever about farms, agriculture, so I just kind of jumped into it. But I'm glad I jumped into it because it's been a really great experience so far. This was always a place where after a long day at school, we could just come here and hang out and have laughs, even talk about anything that we were, potentially going through. To be able to do that while also working towards a bigger picture and promote a big message, it was great.
During COVID, we still sought out a way to help. So we got together with some pantries around our community, around the county, and we built some food baskets for people who couldn't go out or didn't have the money to buy food. Growing Change is not only good for the community and the people who need it, but it's helped me accepting more of who I am and sharing my story. This wasn't the greatest place to be in, but if the new meaning we're giving it will eventually outlast that bad.
Growing Change also has to be respectful to the history of these places. This was built in the 1920s, really as an extension of the Jim Crow South. When we say these properties are really a link in the chain that connects chattel slavery to the modern day mass incarceration that this country is enduring, we're being literal.
So this was a closed sergeant station, which was true. That is what it was used for. But we found out later that before that, this was the hot box, because this went back to the 1920s. So there was apparently a partition in, and you were put in, so I was told, with a cup of water and an empty bucket. And they would come back and check on you about 12 hours later. The guys want to turn this into a recording studio and a reading room to do positive messaging.
The mass incarceration of today continues to lay a heavy burden on people of color who are disproportionately continued to be locked up. These properties provide a staging ground to ignite the social entrepreneurial spirit of those communities to be able to help transform these properties while we transform our youth and while our youth help transform our communities.